MG K3 Magnette 1933. 124 horsepower, 1086 cc SOx supercharged 6-cylinder engine with single-SU carburetor, 4-speed manual pre-selector transmission, front semi-elliptic springs with solid axles, and 4-wheel mechanical drum brakes. Wheelbase, 2,388 mm, 94 inches. From 1933 to 1934, MG built 33 supercharged 6-cylinder racing cars, which would turn out to be the most successful British competition model until the rise of Jaguar. The K3 Magnette generated 124 horsepower at 6,500 revolutions per minute from a single overhead camshaft supercharged 6-cylinder engine with only 1,086 cubic centimeters of displacement. It was the ultimate example of a series of highly successful supercharged sports racing cars for which MG was very well known for in the pre-war era. Power was delivered to the underslung rear axle through a Wilson pre-selector box, which allowed the driver to change gear in advance, but the shift would not occur until the clutch was depressed. The British aristocrat and well-known pre-war racing driver Earl Howe can be credited for the K3's existence. The veteran racer persuaded MG to tackle the power and success of Alfa Romeo and Maserati Italian teams in the 1933, 1,000-mile Mille Miglia race. He also offered to underwrite the cost, and the first prototypes were constructed only 6 months before the race was to begin, on April 8, 1933. The 3 team cars were completed in time, and the first K3 prototype spent 5 weeks practicing on the snow-covered Mille Miglia course in January. The factory MG team cars were driven by Earl Howe and H.C. Hamilton in K3001, Tim Birkin and Bernard Rubin in K3002, and Count Johnny Lorani and George Aston in K3003. It had been agreed that Birkin's car would be the heir of the 1,100 cubic centimeter group, which started in Brescia. Birkin broke the class record for the first 220 miles, but he was forced to retire with a burnt valve. His pace had been too much for Tuffanelli and the leading Maserati, whose gearbox had failed, and the other Maserati was in difficulties. Birkin averaged 87.95 miles per hour for the 130 miles from Brescia to Bologna, and all 3 cars were running at 110 miles per hour, impressive for 1,100 cubic centimeter cars in 1933, traveling on winding gravel roads, with wings and lights. With Birkin out, Aston and Lorani set the pace, followed by Lord Howe and Hamilton. They passed all the smaller cars that day, finishing 1-2 in class, with 90 seconds between them. The MGs collected the team prize, with average speeds of 56.9 miles per hour and 56.82 miles per hour. They might have been faster, but frequent spark plug changes were required. As night fell, Aston and Lorani's generator failed, and they were unable to take advantage of Lorani's knowledge of the roads. The MG was down to 1 Lucas headlight, about as bright as a candle in a beer bottle. As Lorani noted in his book, Mille Miglia, 1927 to 1957, The Fabulous Story of the Great Road Race, having passed every car before us, we were the first car through the town and villages. We were also ahead of expected time. Thus, we often found the road full of vehicles and people who were not very convinced by our poor headlight that a Mille Miglia car was on its way. MG K3s went on to have a successful racing career in the 1930s. Whitney Straight won the 1933 Coppa Turbo Jr., and Tazio Novellari was so impressed that he drove a K3 in the 1933 Tourist Trophy, and won it. Eddie Hall won the Brooklands 500-mile race, by 28 minutes, and in MG's best performance ever at Le Mans, Charles Martin and Roy Eccles won their class in 1934, finishing an amazing 4th overall. K3001 has a well-documented trail of ownership and competition history. After competing in the Mille Miglia, Howe used the car in the JCC International Trophy at Brooklands, finishing 4th overall, with an average speed of 79.8 miles per hour. K3001 was then driven at the Shelsley Wash Hill climb by Count Lorani, George Aston, and Fay Taylor. The car was used once more, driven by Earl Howe at Coppa Montenegro. However, It was crashed in practice and was sent back to the factory for repair. Various contemporary photos and articles covering the car's various exploits are included in the history file. In 1934, K3001 inherited the lightweight body from Nuvolari's Tourist Trophy winner, and it was hill-climbed extensively throughout Europe by Bobby Kolarowski. From 1935 to 1937, H. Williams was a regular competitor at Donington Park, Shelsley Wash, Manenberg, the Limerick Grand Prix, Phoenix Park, as well as Southport Sands. The stewardship of K3001 was then passed to bandleader Herman Dersky. During 1938, whilst driving the car, the engine failed, sending a rod through the block. K3001 was then left disused until 1941, when noted motoring enthusiast Michael Crowley Milling acquired it and commenced the restoration. Crowley Milling is mentioned in the 1942 copy of Autocars, the owner of K3001. In the May 1943 issue of Autocar, he advertised for a complete engine or parts, radiator shell, and front mudguards. In June 1944, Roy Jackson, who was H. Williams' mechanic, wrote a 4-page story on K3001 in Motorsport, detailing the competition seasons of 1935 to 1937. Crowley Milling read the story, and the July issue confirms that he was the owner of K3001. The next mention of K3001 is in 1952, when it was sold to Bentley expert Bill Short, in a partially restored state. Short was working on Crowley Milling's Bentley 4-liter at the time, and by late 1952, he advertised the Earl Howe K3 for sale. Copies of the correspondence, articles, and adverts are included with the history file. By the late 1960s, the McCall family, well-known VSCC members, acquired the partially restored K3001, which is confirmed by a letter on file. The McCalls have been, and still are, active VSCC members. In April 1995, collector and highly respected marque specialist Peter Gregory acquired K3001 and proved to be the man to finish the restoration of K3001, incorporating both its major original components and new parts where necessary. Gregory finished the restoration by 1998, and Rover Group used K3001 to promote the new MGF Super Sports. In September 1999, K3001 was shown at the Goodwood Revival. The current owner, an avid motoring enthusiast, acquired the K3 in 2007. He competed in the Monaco Historic Grand Prix in May 2008, the Le Mans Classic in June 2008, winning the Index of Performance, and exhibited K3001 at the 75th anniversary of the K3 at MG's Silverstone International Meeting. In September 2009, K3001 competed in the Brooklands Trophy at the Goodwood Revival, and in May 2010, it was back competing at the Monaco Historique. It was also the subject of an extensive article by Andrew Frankel in Motorsport magazine. In addition to reams of documents tracing K3001's history, there is an extensive photographic record. Factory team cars rarely come to market. Cars with such a wonderful and colorful racing history are even rarer. K3001 will be welcome at any event for which it is eligible, and it will continue to surprise and delight spectators, as well as its lucky new owner. This example is well sorted for road and race use, and it will be a fantastic addition to any of the greatest collections.